Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18.
Hello and a very warm welcome to this special show. Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV18. Today we're going to talk about the digitization of the financial ecosystem, the emerging trends in banking and fintech, and lots more. To talk about that, I'm joined by two very special guests. Asim Parashar, Partner of Financial Services at PwC, and Manish Bhatia, the President of Technology, Analytics and Capabilities at Lendingkart. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out and joining us here for this very special conversation. Asim, let me start with you actually. How has the pandemic really sped up digitization for the banking sector?
So when we look at COVID, it has been into different phases. So the first phase was really challenging for the whole industry. And when we say financial sector, it's banking, insurance, AMC, NBFCs, etc. So that was challenging in the first phase, and we all as an industry practitioners and participants, we were worried that how the industry will cope up with the challenges, because we all were used to work in a physical environment, client used to come, customer used to come to the branches, etc. So those were the challenges which was foreseen, but the industry responded pretty well. And with the initial hiccups, but it recovered well. And there are two parts of it. One was for the customers, how to enable them to continue doing their transactions. And the second was enablement of the employees and the partners. In all this process, one thing which helped the banks and financial institutions was the digitization of the processes. Now, if you look at it, mobile banking, internet banking was already there. But on the lending side of it, how to acquire new customer, how to underwrite new customer, that was something where the digital came in full force. And where we saw some of the initiatives, the regulator also pitched in with video KYC coming as one of the key initiatives, co-browsing where the assisted channels where the sales team or the relationship manager sitting with you and helping you to finalize your loan forms or helping you to finalize your life insurance policies or helping you to invest in the mutual funds. And as you see the results after the first wave of COVID, this whole process becomes so automated and people were so comfortable with that, and the customers were quite comfortable and the partners were also quite comfortable. Now in this whole process, if we see the fintechs took the lead, they kind of worked with the banks and insurance companies to enable them. That was number one. The various partners worked with them, and this process has kind of accelerated the whole process of digitization. Now digital is given, it's going to stay.
Manish, let me bring you in. What are the new trends emerging in banking and fintech, especially after the pandemic? And, how is the whole industry being reimagined after the pandemic? 2 years have passed. So we have enough experience in hindsight to know more.
What we've seen is with Jan Dhan Yojana, overall the penetration of banks and their reach definitely, became quite prevalent in India. But the banking aspect of that whole scheme was still lacking. And, what's really happening is we are actually seeing where banks are taking a very horizontal role. Very, very important from an infrastructure perspective, access to customers, their reach. And what fintechs are doing is taking a vertical approach, where they are either going after a segment or they're going after a customer persona and really solving that problem in a very, very detailed way, going very deep. So the trends, what we are actually seeing is definitely we're seeing a lot of partnerships as a result of this, where banks are you want to partner with fintechs so that they could get the vertical capabilities that they're building, and fintechs are really happy to sort of partner with the banks so that they actually get the infra and the horizontal capabilities that they build. So that's the main trend, and it's mainly about how do we get banking to the masses, and what fintechs are bringing to the table are the vertical specializations.
Asim, let me come back to you on that note. What are the key areas for financial organizations to, really focus on to overcome some of the challenges that have been brought on by the pandemic?
There are three things which we have to look at it. One side we have the fintechs, the other side we have the big techs, and in between you have the financial institutions. And traditionally it used to be product centric. financial market used to be always product centric. You design a product and you then look for a customer segment and try to launch it there. You will never see a way or a process in which you go to the customer, identify their needs, and try to design a product, a financial product for them. So that was the trend which used to happen. Now what has changed is that people are now talking about customer at the center, because the whole expectation, the behavior, and also the e-commerce part which has come up, or the adoption of the TikToks or the other platforms with the mobile penetration, that has phenomenally increased. So the need of the customer is that, can you give me a product and a service which is customized to my need instantaneously and 24/7 whenever I need that part of it. Now that was never a banking or a financial institution's way of working. So it has completely changed. So the organizations, if you look at it, the challenge is it has to be nimble, agile to launch a product. Just to give you a perspective, when COVID hit the country, only one insurance company was able to launch a product for COVID-related coverage within the first 2 weeks of the pandemic hitting us. Others took months to arrive at. Now that was the preparedness which was there in the industry, because they were not tuned to this kind of event happening and then doing that part of it. So currently, if I look at the organization part of it, two areas, if banking, collections is one area which is still very neglected, I would say, and the interactions with customer is quite painful at times. So can these organizations look at their underwriting processes, their collection processes, their NPA processes, to have flexibility to handle that kind of a request which is coming from the customer? The regulator had to intervene with the moratorium part of it. Otherwise, the industry was still there. Nobody was kind of looking at it and how to handle that. So that is there. Second is the talent which is tuned to these kind of environment, and that is the biggest problem these organizations will face, because the fintechs are nimble. They are willing to fail. They are willing to experiment, learn from it and move ahead. But in a bank, you are not allowed to fail. Or in a life insurance, you are not allowed, because you are the custodian. There is a trust from the customer. So these are some of the things, the organization operating model, my expectation and my prediction is that it's going to change drastically in the next 5 to 6 years. Some of this will be driven by the regulators, and you can see the number of directives, guidelines that have been coming up, whether Niti Aayog talking about digital banks, or RBI talking about account aggregator, co-lending, digital lending. So many things are happening at such a fast pace that for any financial institution which is traditional in nature, it has to change from the sales to the collection and back office part of it, and it has to align with the customer life cycle. That is the fundamental change of doing business. It has to become the biscuit manufacturing company or a retail manufacturing company, something of that kind, because that is the expectations of the customers.
Manish, let me come to you. Like you earlier also said, it is more collaboration, it's not really competition. The future of banking and financial services that lies not in increased competition between fintechs and banks, but in synergetic, relationships. Could you tell us, what are the benefits of this relationship between, or collaboration between banks and fintechs that we're going to see going ahead as newer challenges come forward?
Bank, if you will, right? They're actually really good in building horizontal capabilities. Branches, products around, deposits, different types of loan accounts, insurances, things like that. Now, fintechs, what they want to do is focus on a customer experience and really go deep on a vertical problem. So if I rewind a little bit, right, in the decade of the 2000s, so 2000 to 2010, what we really saw was the big banks, the HDFCs, the ICICIs, the SBIs, the PSUs, they actually were very, very critical to build that decade when it comes to financial services. Now, fast forward to 2010 to 2020, the decade there. That is when we saw a lot of big NBFCs, Shriram's Transport, Bajaj, Tata Capital, where they actually took on a lot of market share. Obviously, the market overall grew, But the NBFCs in that decade really did well because, again, they were focused on a specific problem and they went deep into, solving a customer problem. Now, this current decade, right, from 2020 to 2030, this decade is going to be of, the technology company and fintechs where you go in with a problem set, a big problem you want to solve for a customer experience perspective. So you will see, the Amazons, the Googles, and other fintech companies, Lendingkart inclusive, where we're trying to create a specific niche for a problem that we have. Now, where do the synergies lie? The synergies are where the big banks and the NBFCs, right? How do they use the vertical capabilities that an agile small startup is able to do? And, how does an agile startup actually use the infrastructure the banks have already built to their growth? So I think it is definitely a positive sum game. If this goes well, the overall market is definitely going to increase. And obviously, at the end of the day, the customers, right, the underserved, the unprivileged, who are not actually getting access to financial, the financial fold of things will actually get into it, and we will see more digital transactions come into play.
Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV 18. Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV 18.
Asking this question to you, customers of today, they want a lot more personalization, more value-driven engagements from their banks or their fintechs. How are banks achieving this fusion between banking experience and the customer's changing needs?
So, Ritu, we'll have to break it into two parts. One part is liability side of it, where I have to keep my money with a financial institution, or I have to invest with a financial institution. And there the trust comes into play. There a security comes into play. So that is one part of it where we look at it. And the customer expectation is very simple. My money should be secure with you. And whenever I want to withdraw or whenever I want to kind of break it and take it with me, I should be able to do that. 24/7 is the requirement. On the asset side of it, where I want to take a loan for my personal needs and to support my lifestyle or any kind of goal, my children's education or any goal in my life which I want to fulfill. And the aspirations have been growing. So everybody wants to go for a vacation or want to buy certain things which are aspirations. It used to be an aspiration in the earlier years. So there the expectation is, can the product be customized to my need? Can I get a better rates for it, which is competitive? And third, with a convenience, can I get it at my doorstep or at my mobile or a digital assets, whichever I am using on that part of it? So those two expectations are completely different. And when we see it a customer and across the segment also, it is very, very different. So the customer segment, micro-segmentation of customer, personalization, or people talk about hyper-personalization. We have still not reached at the level of personalization part of it. So you buy one thing on a platform and you will get in 2 months, you will receive similar kind of ad coming to you. So those are the challenges that we are seeing on that part of it. But customer has moved ahead. Financial institutions are trying to do a catch up on that part of it. It can get disrupted. So a player can come in who kind of just owns the customer and try to provide a product and services which is completely different from today's model. Only thing which is stopping that is the regulator. The regulator is still trying to protect the traditional financial institution. The day they reduce the regulation or make it more constructive in a manner, then I think you will see a lot of innovation happening.
Manish, coming back to you, how can financial organizations develop new and improved value propositions for customers in this new digital era, so to speak? What next generation technologies can be leveraged?
To provide better experience, it is, really, really important to understand the customer. What does the customer needs? What sort of experience does he desire? What sort of products he wants? And for us to get to that level, it's really, really important to understand the data, right? So, it starts with data. Obviously, you build different technology on top of it, and we can go into those details. But you start with data and really understand what this customer wants. or what is he going to want. Probably he doesn't know that he wants it, and looking at the data, you might be able to recommend the right products for him. The way overall, data has evolved. So there are three basic partitions of data, if you will. The first partition is public data. Now, we've seen a lot of innovation coming in that space, right? Because the data is public. For example, the search, the product. So the product details when it comes to the e-commerce players, cab aggregators where, it's easier to sort of get access to the cabs, where the cabs are. So there has been a lot of innovation when it comes to accessing public data and building products for your customers. Now, after the public, you have a layer which is the personal side of things. How does the customer interact with the product? What is his search history? Which websites does he visit? And overall, how is he thinking about, which product, which insurances does he have? So, understanding the personal aspect of customers, there are different products that are built on top of the personal. And which basically leads to innovation in spaces where you have access to personal data. The financial aspect, which is mainly deemed as private, right? The innovation has obviously been slower because now how does a customer share his private information, which could be the bank statement, it could be GST, it could be tax information. And lately, the regulators have come up with this framework around account aggregator, which is consent-based access to data. Now, it could be financial information, it could be health-related information, which is private. I don't want to share it with anyone else, but I can, as a customer, provide consent to a company saying, for this specific need and for this specific duration, you can access my data and give me services. So the value prop is how do I dissect these different compartments in the data, understand what are the products you can build on top of them, and actually give the access to. So that is where the fintech, the startups, and even banks need to understand what compartment they want to actually play in, which will actually result in the right product for your customers.
Manish, could you give us a sense on how Lendingkart's data strategy has improved customer conversion rates with some examples?
So, I'll again go back to ecosystem evolution, right? So obviously the financial aspect has been, the slowest because, the data that we deal with is private. Now, overall, Lendingkart, the way we build it is we build it very close to the India Stack framework that has been built by various different organizations in India. The base layer, which is the presentation layer, right? With the presence-less layer, which is how do I give my KYC? This is something that Azmin was also talking about. Video KYC sitting in the house. Now, on top of the presence-less layer, you have the paperless layer. Now, how do I get access to the customer's details? And I know that this is not fraudulent and this is coming from the right authorities, which is where the DigiLockers of the world come in. On top of that, you have the cashless layer, which is a lot of innovation has happened in this payment space when it comes to UPI transactions, when it comes to, eNACH capabilities, things like that. On top of that, you have the consent layer, which is, the very recent one, which is around the account aggregator. So what at Lendingkart we do is we use technology. One is taking help of the ecosystem and what is available, and then building on top of that, how do we build the best customer experience? How do we understand when the drop-offs happen? Use data to analyze how many clicks does the customer do? Where does he drop off? And also we have a very proprietary underwriting engine which actually uses alternate data, right? So we just don't look at the bureau score, the CIBIL score, the CRIF score. We actually use alternate data which forms 3/4 of our underwriting engines, what we call variables, to understand whether this customer is someone that we want to provide services when it comes to giving them loans. So overall, just looking at the entire stack, the data capabilities and understanding the customer experience, we've been able to really create a dent when it comes to conversion for our customers.
Azmin, what do you make of the fact that, or rather, the question to you is, how can banks and fintechs accelerate their adoption towards digital by moving towards new cloud-based business architecture? Any examples you could give us?
So Ritu, on the cloud-based architecture, and I can give you an example. So I think 1 year back in IPL, within a particular time frame between 7:30 to 11, a lot of those bettings, or I won't say betting, it's kind of you're making your team and there is a competition and gaming kind of concept was there. At that time, UPI enables all transactions 24/7 and it is able to handle the volume of it. But those transactions, if it starts hitting the bank's core banking infrastructure, it creates certain type of load on it where the value of each transaction is quite low. Now, these kind of situations will arise because you are giving access to the customer for 24/7. Now, if we talk among ourselves, 10 years back, maybe we used to look at our bank statement twice or thrice a month. Now, invariably, every day we check our bank account on the mobile, etc. And we do certain transactions, Google Pay, and etc. All is happening. So what is it is creating that it is generating huge amount of volume. So scalability is number one problem which most of the financial institutions are going to face. Second is the resiliency of it. So if there are certain challenges which happens in one area, etc., how do you handle the resiliency part of it? And third is the security. So these are the three basic requirements for an architecture which can sustain this growth, sustain this innovation, and help these financial institutions to launch new product at a very short time, where you require a sandbox or a testing environment, etc. And these can be made available on demand. Now, cloud provides this to the financial institution, and that is something which is there. So now all the financial institutions, the traditional, the new ones, everyone is moving towards cloud. Currently, it is running in a very hybrid kind of architecture, I would say, that some of the data still resides with on-premise with the financial institutions, and some of them on the customer interaction layer, customer touch point, sales touch point, etc. is residing on the cloud. So cloud is the, I would say, the technology which is the future, and in next 4 to 5 years, we will see a huge amount of transitioning to cloud, and which is the need of the hour for the financial institutions from these three perspectives.
Manish and Aseem, on that note, both of you, thank you very much for taking time out and joining us here to share your thoughts and your time. We appreciate that. On that note, we'll have to wrap up. Thank you and a goodbye from all of us.
Bank of Baroda presents The Future of Banking, powered by CNBC TV 18. Focus, ideate, innovate.